Brothers, I'm going to introduce to you, to some, present to others, Brother Charles Wesley Ceedy Morgan, who is our keynote speaker this afternoon. Brother Morgan, welcome to Dallas.
Brother Morgan, Brother Morgan, here's the Brother Morgan, he's with us tonight. He's with us, God bless him, he needs it. Here's the Brother Morgan, he's with us tonight. For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, and he wears a Kappa pin. Speech.
81st Elder Watson Diggs awardee, Emerson Lattimore. 85th Elder Watson Diggs awardee, James Mitchell. Southwestern Province Poll Mark, Timothy Albert. National Guide Right Co-Chairman, Kevin Burnett. North Texas Administrative Assistant, Tim White. Southwestern Province Expansion, Reclamation, Retention, and Reinstatement Chairman, Keith Campbell. Dallas Alumni Chapter Poll Mark, Cedric McKenzie. Richardson Plano Alumni Chapter Poll Mark, Jerry Carver. Officers and members of the host chapter, as well as those of the visiting chapters, brothers all. I bring greetings from the officers and members of the Wichita Alumni Chapter. Our poll mark, Brother Weldon Kennedy, extends his personal congratulations to you on this auspicious occasion. I apologize for that introduction. I didn't write it. When Brother Michael Jasper called me, he caught me at a time when I had a number of other priorities I was focused on. I said, well, just Google me. And he managed to find too much stuff. And then had I known that Cordell would be introducing me, I would have provided him with just the basics. But thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to join in the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the Dallas Alumni Chapter's Charter Day. I'm from Oklahoma, and I don't cross the Red River often. I was with our brother and Laurel Wreath laureate, Alcee Hastings, on this past Monday evening at the lounge in his hotel, and as you have surely heard by now, he has had some choice words to say about Texas. When I told him that I would be here today, he reminded me of what he had said in that congressional hearing. Of course, he was not talking about any of you in this room. Even so, after I'm done, I'm driving north. During my college years, I majored in physics with a double minor in mathematics and the dual department of philosophy and religion. It has been my interest in the field of philosophy in particular that inspires many of my speeches at occasions such as this. I'm compelled to draw on my philosophical background in order to find something of interest to talk about. I'm obligated to do my very best because for the next few minutes, I must try to keep your attention. The dual name of philosophy/religion is a precise description of the requirements of that department. Equal shares of study were devoted to each discipline. My philosophy professor, Dr. Oswald Schrog, was an enigma. By that, I mean that he did not appear to be what he was. The man was brilliant in his field, but he looked like Howdy Doody. Hidden behind that simple exterior was a mind that was ever searching, fluid with thought, always willing to give close examination to any ideological perspective before making his own justifiable decision about the options. One of the first things we learned from him was best described by the Greek philosopher Epictetus, who is paraphrased as saying, quote, "The first business of one who studies philosophy is to put is to part with self-conceit, for it is impossible for anyone to begin to learn what he thinks that he already knows, unquote. It is from this same Greek scholar that I derived my message this afternoon. You might wonder what an ancient Greek philosopher could have possibly said in his day that we can still appreciate and use in the 21st century. Epictetus lived from the year 50 AD to 130 AD, many years before education was available to more than a precious chosen few. His real name was unknown, but the word Epictetus is a Greek expression that means acquired. He was not a writer. In fact, his philosophies are handed down to us thanks to one of his pupils, Arian, spelled with two R's. As Epictetus lectured, Arian took cogent notes and published them in 2 volumes titled Discourses and Enchiridion. The specific theme of my address this afternoon is drawn from his philosophy regarding appearances, and I quote, "Appearances to the mind are of 4 kinds. Things either are what they appear to be, or they neither are nor appear to be, or they are and do not appear to be, or they are not and yet appear to be. Rightly to aim in all of these cases is the wise man's task." Sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo until you break it into its 4 primary parts. First of all, he tells us that some things are what they appear to be. This is a quarter. Looks like a quarter. Feels like a quarter. Has the approximate weight of a quarter. 4 of them make $1. You can take this in today's economy. You can take this dollar about anywhere in Dallas, any merchant, and get something worth about a quarter. Nonetheless, the quarter itself is what it appears to be, a quarter. Epictetus is proved to be correct. Some things are what they appear to be. Secondly, he tells us that some things neither are nor appear to be. For example, imagine a full-grown elephant, 10 feet tall, long trunk, short tail, weighing a couple of tons. You could not mistake an elephant to be a mouse. Even if you set a mouse trap and somehow caught an elephant, you would never say, "Look at the big mouse." You'd say, "Look, I caught an elephant." An elephant is not a mouse, nor does it appear to be a mouse. Even though some people who heard about the government spending $700 for a screwdriver or $1,500 for a toilet seat might say that an elephant really is a mouse built to government specifications. No matter. We know and understand that Epictetus was right about this part of his philosophy also. That is, some things are not and do not appear to be. Thirdly, he cautions us that some things are and do not appear to be. Some of the best examples of this can be found in nature. A chameleon modifies its color to match its surroundings. It's still a chameleon no matter what appearance it takes. Many insects blend into the foliage of a tree or flower and seem to disappear. They are still there, of course. They just don't appear to be. Here, Epictetus is again proven correct. Like the chameleon, some things are and do not appear to be. Finally, his 4th revelation should be taken as a warning. Some things are not and yet appear to be. A mirage seems to be water on the horizon, but a cupful will get you nothing but sand. Fool's gold gleams and glitters to the eye, but you can't cash it in for anything but a smile. Sure enough, some things are not and yet appear to be. How can you best be described? What kind of person is inside that facade that you present to the world? Are you what you appear to be? Or do you appear to be something you really are not? Appearances can be quite deceiving. Ladies have to be the worst offenders when they put on makeup, change their hairstyle and its color. They can look like whoever or whatever they want. They're careful to look alluring without looking cheap. Husbands often wait for hours until the wife has achieved just the right appearance for a night out. Are they hiding the real person they are, or is it the makeup that makes them real? I know a woman who's never seen in public without what appears to be several pounds of makeup on her face. In her case, The makeup has become such a part of her that without it, she would not be herself. Men aren't that much different, really. We have a fraternity brother who went prematurely gray in his 20s. Frankly, it made him look quite distinguished at that age. A full head of silver hair with a trim gray mustache to match. Only a speckle or two of black could be found amidst the thousands of gray locks. When he reached his late 40s, the gray made him look older than he was. And one day he walked into my house with jet black hair and a jet black mustache. The moment I saw his new look, I decided there were only two possibilities for the drastic change. Either he was trying to look younger to impress some potential employer, or he was going to start chasing much younger women. Knowing him, the chasing story would make more sense. But as it turned out, the reason was simpler than either of those options. It seems that since so many people had been complimenting him on his distinguished silver hair through the years, he thought he should get rid of the very few black hairs that remained. When he tried to make his head totally gray, it turned green. So he dyed it black to hide the green, not the gray. Appearances can be deceiving. I'm not what I appear to be. I'm not comfortable wearing a coat and tie. I'm most comfortable in cowboy boots, blue jeans, and a t-shirt. Had you been in Oklahoma City yesterday, you could have seen the real me. Had you seen me, you would never have imagined that I would be here today looking like this and trying to sound intelligent. This attire, my proper table manners, even the words I've chosen to share with you today are not the day-to-day me. For those of you who have come to know me personally, you can attest that I am not politically correct. And I doubt that many of you here are exhibiting the real you that is hidden behind your proper attire and gentlemanly manner. We must maintain these appearances from time to time in order to fit comfortably in this society. If some of you acted now the way you act at home, you wouldn't be invited out to enjoy another occasion such as this. Plus, the rest of us would talk about you like you had a tail. Well, these types of acceptable appearances that we're sharing today are expected. Don't be too troubled by the fact that today most of us are not what we appear to be, but search your souls. How many of you can say that in your personal life, business life, or fraternal life, you really are what you appear to be? Can your friends, relatives, co-workers, and fraternity brothers depend on you to be consistent, even if it's bad? Again, are you what you appear to be? Or do you appear to be something you're not? Do you appear to care while you're stabbing somebody in the back? Is the real you hidden behind a fake smile or camouflaged with an insincere compliment? They say that what goes around comes around and every dog has its day, but as most of you have heard before, everything that hits the fan is not evenly distributed. How does this pertain to Kappa Alpha Psi as a fraternity? Some of you are already getting ahead of me, and yes, I'm going to go there today. Before I do, allow me to remind some of you and repair the thinking of some others about a matter that has grown out of hand in our fraternity. I hate to be the one that has to tell you this, but some of you have either forgotten or been misled. Kappa Alpha Psi is not about brotherhood. The fundamental purpose of Kappa Alpha Psi is achievement. It is coincidental that when you gather men of achievement into a bond of fraternity, brotherhood happens as a tangential benefit of associating with men of achievement and distinction. Brotherhood is earned in the same manner that true respect is earned. Yes, we're expected to give another Kappa the benefit of the doubt and offer him at least an entry level of civility when we first meet. After that, not every member earns the benefit of brotherhood, and there are some whose behavior causes them to be rebuked. When a member turns his back on Kappa, knowingly violates our laws and the laws of society, reveals our secrets to non-members, exposes us to levels of risk that could destroy us, then he loses the benefit of brotherhood. too often we have selected applicants for membership who have exhibited a potential for brotherhood without a satisfactory appearance of achievement. Furthermore, Kappa Alpha Psi is not about guide-right. The fundamental purpose of Kappa Alpha Psi is achievement. It is coincidental that when you gather men of achievement into a bond of fraternity, they recognize the need and act on the matter of guiding young men in the right direction, hopefully thereby planting the seeds that may grow into more men of achievement. Guide-right is a tangential benefit of gathering men of achievement and distinction into a bond of fraternity. Kappa Alpha Psi is not about training for leadership. The fundamental purpose of Kappa Alpha Psi is achievement. It is coincidental that when you gather men of achievement into a bond of fraternity, they begin planning for tomorrow by training their own members who will lead them in the future. Training for leadership is a tangential benefit of gathering men of achievement and distinction into a bond of fraternity. Kappa Alpha Psi is not about community service. Here we go again. The fundamental purpose of Kappa Alpha Psi is achievement. It is coincidental that when you gather men of achievement into a bond of fraternity, one of the first things they recognize is the moral imperative of caring for their immediate surroundings, the communities in which they live. Community service is a tangential benefit of gathering men of achievement and distinction into a bond of fraternity. What I'm saying, brothers, is that anything and everything we do that is good begins with us being defined as and being men of achievement. An applicant for membership who appears to be a non-achiever should not be initiated. An applicant who appears to show a potential for achievement should be denied membership until he has fulfilled that potential and becomes an achiever. I would hope that each of you here this afternoon could be regarded as being representative of what Kappa is supposed to be about, achievement. I would hope that each of you could be labeled as a man of distinction, prominent in your own chosen profession or career, regarded highly by your family, friends, and co-workers. However, in any group of this size, as a practical matter, there must be at least one or more of you who cannot be described in those glowing terms. That's just the way I feel, brothers. I mentioned guide-right. I'm familiar with a nearby chapter here in the Southwestern Province whose exemplary efforts in the specific area of guide-right just may be what defines them. It could be that guide-right appears to be what Kappa is about in their chapter when viewed by the public. In that case, I don't have a whole lot of heartburn about it because there are some chapters whose appearance is perceived to be something negative and unworthy. One of the greatest examples of how a Kappa man is supposed to appear is seated among you. I'm so proud to call Brother Kevin Burnett my brother and my friend. We all look up to him. Well, that's funny. Yeah. Let me finish the sentence. We all look up to him as a symbol of what more of us should be doing for guide-right in particular. He is well known in his community in the Southwestern Province and across the nation for his leadership and dedication to the cause of guiding young men in the right direction. Of course, his physical presence is what you first notice about him. He appears to be what he is, a giant among men. And we know him as a giant in Kappa Alpha Psi. Brother Burnett, thank you for being what you appear to be. Appearances. The national news this week has been peppered with stories about an incident that took place at the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. In a cell phone video that was recorded on a party bus, it appears that members of Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity are singing with vigor and enthusiasm, "There will never be a nigger at SE. There will never be a nigger at SC. You can hang him from a tree, but he'll never sign with me. There will never be a nigger at SC. Really? My reaction to that video was not politically correct. It made me feel something other than tactful and diplomatic. And you probably also seen the news report about the chapter's house mother who was caught on video acting even worse than those students. A grown woman, almost elderly, repeating that word more than half a dozen times with a smile. She said that she was singing along to a rap song, I Don't Care. She appeared to be enjoying herself way too much in that video. The national office of Sigma Alpha Epsilon took swift action and suspended their charter, the chapter's charter, and its members. In a televised interview, a spokesman for the fraternity disassociated that kind of behavior from the fraternity's principles and said all of the right words to make the nation believe that this was an anomaly. Did any of you see that interview? Did any of you notice that the fraternity's national spokesman, a grown man, an adult, was wearing a Nazi haircut? I'm not accusing him of being a racist, but he appeared to be something other than the words that were coming out of his mouth. Meanwhile, in the SAE fraternity house at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma, a Confederate flag was visible inside the room of a fraternity member whose window was open for all to see. That member was asked to remove the flag because it was making their fraternity appear to be racist. Yeah, I could see how one would think that. The motto of Sigma Alpha Epsilon purports them to be true gentlemen. That's the appearance they want the world to see. Epictetus might say that they are not and do not appear to be. About that word we're supposed to stop saying anymore. The politically correct folks call it the N word, because that appears to be a way of saying it without actually saying it. If you're like me, the moment I hear someone say that or see it in print, my mind instantly inserts the actual word in that spot. I've also noticed other variations on the same theme, like the letter N followed by 5 asterisks, or the letter N followed by a conglomeration of symbols like a hashtag and a % sign and the symbol for @ or whatever. A couple of days ago on an internet-based news report about what had happened at the SAE chapter in Oklahoma, they wrote the word as N asterisk GGER, leaving essentially nothing to the imagination. Who do these people think they are fooling or protecting? I know what that word is, and they can't sufficiently disguise it to leave me guessing. I know what it is, even though it may not appear to be. And now that they're using those disguises to describe it, I'm beginning to see it much more often than ever before. What's that about? Appearances. The year was 1988. I do remember the year, but for reasons that I cannot recall at the moment, I reflected on the question of maturity, my own maturity. I was 38 years old at the time. Go ahead, do the math. I'll be 65 years old on May 18th. Anyway, I was 38 years old in 1988, and I thought back to the point at which I could objectively identify with certainty the moment that I was no longer a child. More specifically, the moment when I became a man. No, it wasn't when I was initiated in 1969. That process was childish, and my attitude about it was childish too. I was 19 years old, and I acted like a 19-year-old, like the child that I was. Reflecting on my life at age 38, I knew that I was grown before I was 30, but I certainly wasn't grown when I was 19. When I was 16, I felt grown because I had a driver's license and the freedom that accompanied it. At age 18, I felt grown because I graduated from high school and I was leaving home to go to college. At 19, I felt grown when I was initiated into Kappa Alpha Psi. At age 21, I felt grown, if for no other reason than the fact that the government certified me as an adult at age 21. At age 22, I felt grown because I had received my degree. By age 24, I had obtained gainful employment with the federal government, bought my own car, rented my own apartment, paid my own bills and taxes, and all of those things made me appear to be grown. Some of the things that impressed me at age 24 were childish things. Some of my goals in life, even from day to day, were childish in nature. So when did I become a man? To this day, I can't identify the actual moment that it happened, but I've narrowed it down to a time when I was about 25 or 26 years old. I remember that by the time I was about 25 or 26, I had put away childish things. I wasn't a man, a grown man, until I became 25 or 26 years of age. But by every objective measure, I can look back and admit I was still a child. I've said all that to say this. Maturity happens at different times for different people. But I have yet to meet any group of 19-year-old students who are truly mature enough to be given the ultimate responsible for the well-being and future of Kappa Alpha Psi. Nonetheless, that is exactly what we have done when we allow some of our undergraduate chapters to determine the fate of our fraternity through their childish activities of underground pledging and hazing. The focus of our fraternity at every turn has become growing concerns about risk management, the what-ifs that have too often become uh-ohs across the width and breadth of this country. The historical fact of our fraternity shows that it is and has been the undergraduate chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi that has pulled us into the pit. I've been assigned to investigate too many allegations of wrongdoing by some of our undergraduate chapters over the years, and I've attended too many official hearings conducted as a result of infractions against our rules and the laws of society by some of our undergraduate chapters. Following the outcome of every single disciplinary action, we have closely examined the root cause of the problem, and time after time it has always resulted in the same conclusion. The most fundamental problems that we have in Kappa Alpha Psi may be traced to a single flaw, the selection process. When all is said and done, we ask, how did that violator become a member of the fraternity in the first place? He clearly did not merit membership in a fraternity that is supposed to be for men of achievement and distinction. How did it happen? It began with one bad apple in the chapter, one non-achiever who saw to it that other non-achievers also became members. Before you know it, you've got a chapter in which a single bad apple may create a climate that results in potential litigation for the fraternity. It's not all of our undergraduate members, of course, brothers, but all it takes is one child doing childish things to prevent our noble clan from being around to celebrate our bicentennial in another 96 years. If a water pipe breaks in your home, the first thing you do is shut off the main valve to stop the flooding so you can clean up the mess and begin repairs. In Kappa, we call that a moratorium on membership intake. And it is the most logical and rational thing for us to do. I've heard arguments that the moratorium may negatively impact some undergraduate chapters, preventing them from maintaining or reaching our specified minimum standard of at least 7 members. For many of those chapters affected in this way, an objective analysis might question whether some chapters deserve the right to keep their charter. Truth be told, even without the moratorium, we have established too many chapters that should not have been chartered in the first place. Too many campuses where there was little or no hope of attracting and maintaining at least 7 men of achievement in the long term. Appearances, brothers. The moratorium on undergraduate chapter membership intake will end. When it does, the proposals from the task force are expected to address and attempt to resolve the risks that have been associated with membership intake in the past. My fear is that whatever they come up with may not fully resolve the problem, because whatever they come up with will not be adhered to by those whose desire it is to do wrong, no matter what the consequences. When we did away with pledging and instituted the Membership Intake and Orientation Program, MIOP, that was sufficient to fix what was broken, except that some of our members refused to follow that program to the letter. They retained and inserted some of their local traditions into the program or simply ignored it altogether. The result was a continuation of the risks that we are still trying to avoid a quarter of a century later. Some of this is your fault. Work with us, brothers. What kind of fraternity does Kappa appear to be? When we talk about how hard we pledged before there was the membership intake and orientation program. Even worse, there may be some members who take false pride in the fact that they participated in some illegal pledge program after we banned pledging 25 years ago. Work with us, brothers. Help us attract the kinds of men who are impressed by our good deeds, of which there are many around the nation and across the oceans. Let us appear to be what we are supposed to be. When the public sees and hears us describe our chapters of initiation as bloody, maniac, beast, and other such derogatory terms, what kind of applicants do you think those words would attract? Some of our members think that the road into Kappa ought to include the kinds of rites of passage that we've seen used by street gangs who beat each other into the gang, or some version of the rites of passage portrayed in Roots, the Alex Haley TV miniseries years ago, where the young men of the tribe were taken away and subjected to the kinds of challenges that they would face in the jungles of Africa. Or some have suggested that we should employ rites of passage similar to military boot camp. Well, brothers, we are not a gang, nor are we preparing ourselves to survive in a jungle or fight a war. We are a fraternity whose fundamental purpose is achievement. The rite of passage in this day and age should have nothing to do with physical discomfort, but more to do with academic and career accomplishment, learning to avoid debt, networking, establishing a pathway to success, building a bond of true brotherhood through association. We should be attracting men who aspire to those kinds of goals and who have already proven themselves worthy of membership. Why would a man of true achievement want to associate with us if we appear to be bloody, maniacal beasts? I know that I've ruffled some feathers today, and that's okay. As I said earlier, when I'm done, I'm driving north. Over 30 years ago, during a debate with a brother who has now joined the chapter Invisible, he and I couldn't see eye to eye on some matter, and as we were ending our conversation, he said, "Brother Morgan, if you and I agreed on everything, one of us would be unnecessary." Appearances, and I quote again, "Appearances to the mind are of four kinds. Things either are what they appear to be, or they neither are nor appear to be, or they are and do not appear to be, or they are not and yet appear to be. Rightly to aim in all these cases is the wise man's task." Quoted from Epictetus. The wise man's task to determine just what description best fits anything. It is not only your task in life to be true to yourself and be what you appear to be. The more difficult challenge of this life may be that we must develop the ability to tell the difference between each of the other possibilities. Like the quarter, some things are what they appear to be. Like the elephant posing as a mouse, some things are not and do not appear to be. Like the chameleon, some things are and do not appear to be. And like the mirage, some things are not and yet appear to be. The fundamental purpose of Kappa Alpha Psi is achievement. We must appear to be achievers because we must be achievers. Thank you, brothers.